This video will contain full spoilers for The Boys Season 4, so if you haven't checked it out, go watch it, but if you have seen it, well, let's begin. So The Boys Season 4 has just wrapped on Prime Video with its newest season, and overall, I really liked it. This season is definitely the weakest, though, of the series. Now, I wouldn't call it like garbage or anything like that, but it does have a lot of problems. Now, The Boys is arguably one of my favorite superhero shows out there, along with things like Invincible, Peacemaker, Loki, and even Gen V. All of those shows I love and I have a lot of time for. When it comes to superhero shows specifically, I haven't enjoyed the majority of them. Specifically when it comes to MCU shows, like, they just mostly suck. They are just like stretched out movies to fit a TV medium, and it just feels like such a mess. Like, I have no plans to check out most of the Marvel shows. That's how disappointed I have been. But The Boys has been one of those superhero shows that I just love to watch and check in every time a new season releases. And this season has a lot of good and a lot of bad. So, let's dive deep into why this season is both the best and worst of The Boys, and let's just have some fun with it, shall we? So when it comes to the previous seasons specifically, I have loved almost all of them. I rewatched the show in its entirety before season 4 so I could get caught up on everything. The first season was a great introduction to this world with a great way to do something very different. In this world, superheroes are just like celebrities. They have their own brand deals and movie deals, but behind the scenes, some can be very egotistical and some can just be straight up psychopaths. We got introduced to some great characters here, like Butcher and Homelander. Like, literally, because of how great Homelander is in the show, people literally think he's a good person, even though he destroyed a plane in the first episode. Like, it was pretty obvious he was a bad guy. And some literally think he would beat Superman, which, if you think that, well, you're delusional. But Homelander is easily my favorite character of the show, and for very good reason. Because even though he is a bad guy, you understand why he does what he does. The reason why is because he only wants love. He only wants the attention around him, because he never had that. He just wants the attention, and if anyone takes it away from him, he will snap. And anything can happen. But this season laid the groundwork for the show and showed us how Vought uses their heroes, and why the boys want to stop them. With Butcher having a vendetta against Homelander for what he did to his wife. Even Huey, who wants revenge on A-Train. And you can tell when he kills Translucent that he isn't the same person anymore after his girlfriend's death. And his relationship with Starlight was great, and still is. And even other characters like MM, Frenchie, Kimiko are all great and contribute a lot to the team. Even though in the first season they may not have a lot to do, but they are still great for what they have. With Butcher as the leader, Huey's like the nerd, MM is the heart, Frenchie is the brain, and Kimiko is the muscle. Granted, season 1 wasn't perfect. It did have some weird stuff like the Homelander and Stillwell relationship, but overall it was still a very good first season. Then season 2 came around, and after that, I was totally on board with this show. I would argue season 2 is even better than season 1, with a great villain in Stormfront, and we see the boys on the run after what Butcher did to Stillwell. We see them try to figure out who Stormfront is, and when they do, things go south. And also, this season puts a big emphasis on the Deep, and each season followed with suit. Showing his rise back to the Seven. After what happened between him and Starlight, he is tossed out. We see him join the Church of the Collective and how that affects him. It really makes us kind of feel bad for the guy, which I didn't expect to see, because season 1, he was, not the good person. We also saw Becca return and her son. Butcher tries to get her out, but she won't leave without Ryan. Butcher only wants Becca and not Ryan because he isn't his. But once he made a promise to keep him safe and then she dies, he promises to do that. And Maeve blackmails Homelander, and he is stuck in place for the moment. Also, beating up Stormfront was so satisfying, and that hospital scene was very unexpected, and all the stuff with Lamplighter, and overall was just a great season. And then we had season 3, which was complete and utter madness in the best way possible. It dialed everything up to 11, the meta jokes, the political messages, the violence, it dialed everything up, and it worked. It also introduced us to Soldier Boy, who is probably my second favorite character in the show. He's great. He's a goat. I love him. I don't care what he does. He's fantastic. Like, all this stuff that went down here should really question how it even got greenlit in the first place. We got to see Starlight become a co-captain, Homelander basically going completely insane, Edgar getting kicked out of Vought, the Temp V, and of course, Herogasm. Like, Jesus, that episode was insane. It's my favorite episode, but it was complete madness, in like the greatest way possible. With Homelander going more and more insane, the boys need to find something to stop him. And when they found out a weapon and then realized it was Soldier Boy, Butcher does everything he can to get him on their side, even if it means breaking the team in half. That's the thing with Butcher. I remember this interview from Karl Urban where he said like 9 times out of 10 he will make the wrong choice. And that's why Butcher is such a great character, because of how complex he is. You can never guess what his next move is, and that's just what makes him so interesting. With other things in the show like Maeve losing her powers, Butcher having a few months left to live, Starlight quits the Seven and joins the boys, and Newman becomes a vice president candidate. Overall, this was a great season and probably the best thing to come out of this franchise. And then we had Gen V, which I find really funny considering this is a franchise that makes fun of spin-offs and now has its own spin-off. I just find that funny. And I definitely don't love it, but I still think it's a really good show and showed us a great different side of the boys' universe, showing us Godolkin, bring us into this like mystery, and it was just a really great time. With Gen V leading us into The Boys Season 4. Now let's talk about The Boys Season 4 because I have thoughts. A lot of them. Now, I want to start with the positives here before we get into any of the negatives. For one, I thought the whole like Homelander trial was really great to see. Him finally paying for his actions for what he did at the end of the 3rd season was just really interesting to see. Also, all the stuff going on between like all the Homelander fans and the Starlight fans, I thought that was really cool as well. Also, a lot of the new characters here were pretty great. Firecracker was a really great character, poking fun at all the woke and neckbeards out there. And her hate for Starlight is a real treat. With Annie embarrassing her at a young age, she has this burning hatred for her, and I don't blame her. I was very shocked when she revealed Starlight and Hughie had an abortion. I did not expect that at all. And Starlight is also really good here. With no longer her Starlight suit and now just having all these supporters, it really shows a new side of her character, and I really liked that. Also, the new Black Noir is really great. It was really weird seeing him talk though, but honestly, I kind of dug it at some point. And him in his relationship with the Deep was also really cool and something unexpected. You're gonna probably hear that a lot. He was pretty funny here, just not knowing how to be Black Noir, and his relationship with the Deep was just very cool to see. Then there's Sister Sage, who is very thought out. She's very intelligent and helps the Seven with their plan. She's also a very cool character, and I do hope she returns in Season 5 because she was a highlight here. Newman also gets a pretty big spotlight here, and she is now like a very underrated character in the show. Like, when she is around, anyone can die and anything can happen. And she, like, isn't necessarily, like, a bad person. She just wants to keep her daughter safe. And every scene with her and Hughie is great, especially in the episode with a bunch of soup animals. Like, how do the writers come up with this? I don't get it. Ryan also gets a larger role in this season, and it was really great to see. Whether it's with Butcher or Homelander, it's just really cool to see both sides. With Homelander being this like crazy father and Butcher just trying to protect Ryan, you can see that he isn't his father. He has more of his mother towards him in the beginning. even feeling bad for killing someone in an accident. And towards episode 7, where you see him stand up instead of listening to Vought, that was really great to see and shows that he isn't entirely his father. And of course, Homelander and Butcher are fantastic as always. The showrunner Eric Kripke teased the hell out of episode 3 here, saying Anthony Starr deserves an Emmy, and he is right. He was phenomenal in episode 3. He was crazy just doing all of these bad things to the people who raised him just because he wanted to. And we get a deeper insight into why he needs love, because he wants permission from the people around him, and this episode clearly shows that. With Butcher also being great, we see how he is doing, and he's not doing great due to him only having like 6 months left to live. Karl Urban does an incredible job here. There's a scene in like the final episode where he's just on the phone with Huey, and it's just such a phenomenal sight to see. Like, Karl Urban just killed it with that scene. Also with the new character that Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays called Kessler, he was really great acting as a hallucination. Like, this is what Butcher would be if he went down the wrong path. He would be Kelsner. But he also has Becca's hallucination as well, more as his conscience. But easily, the best part of this season is A-Train. One thing I noticed after my rewatch is each season puts a focus on one of the 7 members. Season 2 was The Deep, Season 3 was Black Noir, and now it's A-Train, and it's great to see. There is a scene where he is with his brother, and his brother tells A-Train's nephews that he's not a hero. And the way they looked at him just was so sad to see. But then when we see him help the boys, leaking information, and then when he runs MM to the hospital, and we see a kid smiling at him, that felt better to him than anything he ever did at Vought. Now he isn't just the man that killed Huey's girlfriend. He's an actual hero. But okay, now that we got the positives out of the way, let's get into the negatives, because this season is not perfect. One of my biggest gripes with the MCU today is everything feels like set up to the next thing, and we're never living in the moment of the story being told. The Boys Season 4 feels more like setup as opposed to the previous seasons, which is clearly that they're leading up to Homelander and an army of supes running the world. Like when we see all the heroes meet Tech Knight in the Guardians of the Godolkin, it feels like it's more of a setup for Season 5 as opposed to telling a good story in the moment. Then we see the season end on a cliffhanger, which I'm fine with, but it leaves so much room open that it feels like setup for the future as opposed to telling the proper story. Finale is a good finale though, don't get me wrong. The scene where Homelander and other heroes become unionized by the new president, it was clearly there so they could set up Season 5 and lead to the epic showdown between the boys and Homelander. But that is far from my biggest problem with this show. And the biggest problem I have with this show is it puts shock value over story. Specifically with episode 6, which is the worst episode of The Boys ever. Ever. Out of all of them ever, it's absolutely terrible. I remember waking up and seeing it, and after it ended, I was just like, what did I just watch? Like, not even sarcastically, I genuinely had no idea what I just witnessed. Like, it felt like it was just there for no reason other than to shock the audience. Like, I know this is a hot take, and this is me personally, but I'm not a big fan of Euphoria. It feels more interested on getting someone shocked as opposed to telling a good story. Episode 6 feels like an episode of Euphoria. With Huey getting through the ringer here, I feel so bad for my guy. It doesn't help that the showrunner also said that he found the Huey scenes to be funny. Like, what a nice guy. And Tech Knight here makes absolutely no sense. Nothing in this episode makes any sense. For most of it, at least. It's there for shock value and nothing else. Now, The Boys is known for shock value, and I'm not saying shock value is a bad thing, but here, it just felt like it went too far. It felt very forced. With their version of Spider-Man having webs come out of the most disgusting area possible. Nothing in this episode makes sense. It was a terrible episode, and it deserves to be criticized. So much I didn't have interest in seeing the next episode right away. Like, that was how bad that episode was. I just had no interest. And the whole stuff in this season going on with Frenchie and Kimiko feels very messy at times. Now, I'm not one of those people who was, like, against the idea of Frenchie being gay. It was unexpected, sure, but it didn't feel out of place. But the problem is, it just creates this love triangle, and it just feels very unnecessary. Specifically in, like, the first few episodes. Then towards the end, they finally get together, and it's a great moment. Sure. But in the early episodes, the sort of will they, won't they thing is very stale, and it doesn't contribute much. Then, of course, the finale just went insane, where Homelander basically won. Butcher turns on the boys and goes his own way, which makes total sense. His entire motivation in the show was to save Ryan. But then when he kills Mallory, he realizes there's no other options and listens to Kelsner, becomes a soup again, and kills Newman. He knew they would never win, so he did what he had to do. But now, all the boys are captured besides Starlight and Butcher, which will probably be followed up in Season 5. Well, I'm definitely interested to see where this goes. It clearly is leading to Homelander taking over the White House and basically becoming president. We also got Season 2 of Gen V on the way, which I will probably check out because I really liked the first season. It's going to be sad not getting to see Chance in this series, but that is something they could not have controlled, and I am very interested to see how they handle his legacy, and I'm excited for it regardless. We also got another spin-off in Mexico, which is there, I guess. I will give it a chance, but I really don't know why they are doing this. But I've said that with so many shows in the past, so I'll give it a chance. But I guess we will find out where they go when Season 5 of The Boys releases. So to wrap it all up, The Boys Season 4 is a solid season with some problems. Now on to Deadpool and Wolverine and House of the Dragon. I cannot wait to talk to you guys about those. I'm hyped for both. I love them both. Let's go. With some greatness in here, like A-Train and Homelander, but it does fall victim to a mess of setup and shock value. Although it does have moments of greatness, it's not perfect, and definitely the weakest season of the entire show.